Salem's moonless night cloaked 17, Willow Lane in an eerie hush, the Victorian mansion's ivy-clad walls pulsing with secrets older than the cobblestones below. Fog wove through its gables, thick as a witch's breath, carrying whispers of betrayal that clung to the air. In the attic, a lone candle sputtered, its flame casting jagged shadows that writhed like specters plotting revenge. On a dust-laden table, a leather-bound journal lay splayed, its pages etched with cryptic runes and a single name, Clara. Beside it, a vial of emerald liquid shimmered with malevolent promise, its glow unnatural, as if distilled from the town's haunted past. A faint hum, like a curse chanted in forgotten tongues, emanated from the walls, unnoticed by Salem's sleeping souls. Downstairs, the house stood silent, its ornate mirrors reflecting nothing but darkness. Outside, the wind howled, rattling windows and stirring the garden's twisted oaks, their branches clawing at the sky. A shadow moved in the mist, fleeting, purposeful, vanishing into the night. The journal's final page bore a warning in crimson ink, "Trust no one." Unseen, the vial's liquid pulsed once, as if alive, sealing a fate yet to unfold. In the heart of Salem, Massachusetts, where cobblestone streets snaked through a tapestry of history steeped in witch trials and whispered curses, the Victorian mansion at 17, Willow Lane stood as a relic of grandeur and enigma. Its steeply pitched roof pierced the autumn sky, ivy clinging to its weathered facade like veins of some ancient beast. The house, with its stained-glass windows casting kaleidoscopic glimmers and wrought iron gates guarding secrets, glowed under the amber haze of a late October afternoon. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth, decaying leaves, and the faint salt tang from the nearby harbor, a reminder of Salem's maritime soul. To passers-by, the mansion was a postcard of elegance, but within its walls, an unspoken tension simmered, as if the very timbers held their breath. Clara Donovan, 8 months pregnant, stood by the parlor's bay window, her silhouette framed against the misty garden beyond. At 35, her chestnut hair was woven into a loose braid, errant strands catching the golden light that filtered through the lace curtains. Her hazel eyes, usually sharp with the clarity of a woman who had weathered loss and rebuilt her life, were softened by anticipation, yet shadowed by a flicker of unease she couldn't name. Her hand rested gently on her swollen belly, feeling the subtle kicks of the life within, a child she already loved fiercely, boy or girl yet to be revealed. The garden outside, with its gnarled oaks twisting skyward and roses wilting in the autumn chill, mirrored her mood, beautiful but restless, as if braced for an unseen storm. Clara's fingers traced the window's cold glass, her breath fogging faintly, and she wondered if the disquiet in her chest was merely the weight of impending motherhood or something darker, rooted in the house itself. Upstairs, in the attic room being transformed into a nursery, 16-year-old Lily Donovan painted constellations across the slanted walls. Her dark curls, dusted with flecks of starlight blue paint, bounced as she worked, her denim overalls streaked with vibrant hues of cosmic purple and nebula red. Lily's green eyes, a vivid echo of Clara's, sparkled with a purpose that belied her youth. The attic, once a forgotten reliquary of the house's previous owners, dusty trunks and cobwebbed relics, had become her canvas, each star a vow to the sibling she'd soon meet. She stood on a stepladder, her brush tracing the arc of Orion's belt with precision, her movements a dance of creation. The room smelled of fresh paint and old wood, a blend of renewal and history. Clara, mindful of her pregnancy, sat on a cushioned stool below, sketching nebula swirls on a notepad, her contributions limited but deliberate. "Make Cassiopeia bold," she called softly, her voice warm but tinged with the ache in her lower back. Lily grinned, her brush pausing. "This kid's getting a whole galaxy, no matter what." The front door creaked open, its hinges groaning like a warning, announcing Marcus Donovan's return. His chef's coat, still dusted with flour from his restaurant, clung to his broad frame as he stepped into the foyer, the scent of rosemary, garlic, and something faintly metallic trailing him. Marcus, 40, had warm brown eyes that softened when they met Clara's, but today they carried a distant edge, like a cloud eclipsing the sun. His short, salt-and-pepper beard framed a face that was both rugged and kind, a duality that had drawn Clara to him 5 years ago after the death of Lily's father. He crossed the parlor, his boots heavy on the polished hardwood, and pressed a kiss to Clara's cheek, his hand grazing her belly with a tenderness that felt almost too deliberate, as if practiced. "Kicking up a storm?" he asked, his voice low, resonant, but with a note that didn't quite land. Clara nodded, guiding his hand to feel a flutter, her smile masking the prickle of doubt that his touch stirred. "A future artist, maybe," she said, watching his face for a reaction. Marcus's lips curved, but the smile didn't reach his eyes, as if tethered to some hidden thought. Lily bounded downstairs, paintbrush still clutched in her hand, and threw her arms around Marcus. Though he was her stepfather, their bond was forged in late-night talks over hot chocolate, shared laughter at his terrible puns, and quiet moments when he'd taught her to knead dough. It was a connection stronger than blood, or so Clara had always believed. Marcus ruffled Lily's curls, his smile genuine for a moment, but it flickered, retreating behind a veil of distraction. "You're a mess, kid," he teased, but his tone was clipped, his gaze drifting to the window where fog curled around the street lamps like ghostly tendrils. The trio settled into the parlor, the room's antique furniture, velvet armchairs, a mahogany sideboard, and flickering gas lamps casting a warm glow that fought the chill seeping through the windows. The fireplace crackled, its logs spitting embers, but the warmth felt fragile, as if the house itself resisted comfort. Clara moved to the kitchen, stirring a pot of lentil soup, the clink of the spoon against the iron pot a rhythmic counterpoint to her thoughts. The kitchen, with its copper pans and herb bundles hanging from the rafters, was her sanctuary, a place where she could ground herself in the mundane. She mentioned her brother Tom and his wife, Elise, arriving tomorrow from Seattle. Marcus, leaning against the counter, confirmed their reservation at the Hawthorne Hotel, his tone steady but his gaze fixed on the fog-shrouded street outside. "Tom's probably planning some crypto lecture," he said, a faint smirk curling his lips, but there was something beneath it, an undercurrent Clara couldn't parse. Tom, a quirky crypto trader with a penchant for tie-dye, and Elise, a reserved botanist who spoke more to plants than people, were an odd pair, but their visit was a rare chance to gather family before the baby's arrival. Clara suggested Lily join Elise for shopping tomorrow, needing baby supplies like blankets and a mobile for the nursery. Lily, sprawled on the parlor floor with her sketchbook, hesitated, her phone buzzing with messages from her friend Jasper. Her fingers hovered over the screen, torn between teenage freedom and the pull of duty. She glanced at Marcus, her eyes searching his face for something, a reassurance, perhaps, or a hint of the warmth she'd always trusted. Finding neither, she set the phone down. "I was going to meet Jasper, but family first," she said, her voice firm but laced with a reluctance that tugged at Clara's heart. Clara's chest swelled with pride at her daughter's choice, but she noticed Lily's gaze linger on Marcus, as if trying to solve a puzzle only she could see. As dusk deepened, the fog thickened, swallowing the street lamps in a milky haze. Marcus stood by the parlor window, his silhouette rigid against the glass, his reflection distorted in the antique paints. "Weather's turning," he muttered, his words sharp, as if the fog carried a message meant only for him. The family gathered by the fireplace, its crackling logs a frail bulwark against the creeping cold. Lily sketched a comet's tail, her pencil scratching softly, the sound a quiet rebellion against the house's oppressive silence. Marcus recounted a quirky customer's order, a pizza topped with edible glitter, that drew a laugh from Clara, but the sound felt hollow, echoing in the cavernous room. Her laughter faded quickly, a shadow lingering in her chest, a premonition she dismissed as the weight of pregnancy hormones. Yet the house's creaks and groans, the way the floorboards sighed underfoot, seemed to whisper otherwise, their rhythm syncopated with her unease. The parlor, with its heavy drapes and portraits of stern-faced ancestors, felt both intimate and suffocating. Clara's eyes drifted to a framed photo on the mantel. Her, Lily, and Marcus at a summer fair, their smiles bright against a backdrop of Ferris wheels and cotton candy. It was a memory of joy, but now it seemed like a relic from another life, its edges fraying under scrutiny. Marcus caught her gaze and offered a smile, but it was strained, as if pulled taut by an invisible thread. He poured himself a glass of bourbon from the sideboard, the amber liquid catching the firelight, and took a slow sip, his movements deliberate, almost ritualistic. In the quiet of their bedroom, Clara lay beneath a quilt stitched by her grandmother, its patterns worn but comforting. The room, with its mahogany four-poster bed and faded wallpaper depicting pastoral scenes, was a sanctuary, yet the shadows pooling in the corners felt intrusive, like uninvited guests. Marcus's arm draped over her, his warmth both anchor and question. His breath was steady, but his hand tightened on hers as he spoke, his voice a low rumble in the dark. "I pushed the new menu launch," he whispered. "I'm all yours." The words were a vow, but their edges were sharp, cutting through the silence like a blade. Clara clung to them, her fingers tracing his, willing herself to ignore the chill in his tone, the way it seemed to echo the house's restless murmurs. Outside, the wind howled, rattling the windows with a ferocity that made the glass tremble. The oaks in the garden swayed, their branches clawing at the night sky, their silhouettes like witches dancing in the fog. The mansion at 17, Willow Lane stood silent, its secrets buried deep within its walls. But in the attic, where Lily's stars glowed faintly, a journal waited, its pages heavy with truths yet to be uncovered. The fog pressed closer, wrapping the house in a shroud, and Salem slept, unaware of the storm brewing within. Clara's eyes fluttered shut, but sleep came fitfully, her dreams threaded with whispers she couldn't decipher. In the faint, metallic scent of something ominous lingered in the air. Salem's pre-dawn fog clung to the streets like a shroud, muffling the world beyond 17, Willow Lane. Inside the Victorian mansion, a sharp cry shattered the stillness as Clara Donovan, 8 months pregnant, jolted awake, her hands clutching her belly. Pain, raw and unrelenting, surged through her, each contraction a tidal wave pulling her toward an inevitable shore. The bedroom, with its mahogany bed and pastoral wallpaper, felt both sanctuary and cage, the shadows in the corners pulsing with a life of their own. Clara's hazel eyes, wide with urgency, met the dim glow of the bedside clock. For 03 a.m. She gripped Marcus's arm, her nails digging into his skin, her breath ragged. "It's time," she gasped, her voice a thread of resolve woven through fear. Marcus, roused from sleep, sprang into action with a chef's precision, his brown eyes sharp despite the hour. He dialed the hospital, his voice steady as he relayed details, while Clara focused on breathing, each inhale a battle against the pain. Lily, awakened by the commotion, appeared in the doorway, her dark curls tousled, her green eyes wide with a mix of fear and determination. At 16, she was no stranger to crisis, having weathered her father's death years ago, but this moment carried a different weight. She grabbed the hospital bags packed weeks earlier, her movements swift but deliberate, her paint-splattered hoodie a stark contrast to the sterile urgency of the moment. "Early bird, huh?" she quipped, her voice light but trembling, a shield against the chaos. Marcus guided Clara down the stairs, his arm a firm anchor as she navigated each step, her body protesting with every movement. The foyer's gas lamps flickered, casting eerie shadows that danced across the stained glass panels, as if the house itself were watching, reluctant to let them go. Salem Hospital's maternity ward loomed through the fog, its brick facade a monolith against the gray dawn. The drive had been a blur, Marcus weaving through empty streets while Clara gripped Lily's hand in the back seat, her contractions growing closer, fiercer. Inside, the ward was a sterile cocoon, its fluorescent lights harsh against the soft beeps of monitors and the muffled cries of newborns. Nurse Vera, a woman with gray-streaked hair and a smile that seemed more habit than warmth, settled Clara into a bed, her hands efficient as she checked vitals. 5 centimeters, Vera announced, her tone clinical. "You're doing great." Clara nodded, her sweat-dampened brow betraying the effort of her calm. The room, with its pale blue curtains and antiseptic scent, felt both safe and alien, a liminal space where life and pain intertwined. Lily perched on a chair beside the bed, her sketchbook abandoned in favor of a damp cloth she used to wipe Clara's forehead. Her presence was a lifeline, her green eyes steady despite the fear lurking beneath. She hummed softly, a lullaby from her childhood, the notes a fragile thread tying them to normalcy. Marcus paced the room's perimeter, his chef's calm unraveling, his boots scuffing the linoleum with each restless step. His brown eyes darted to the window, where fog pressed against the glass, obscuring the world beyond. Clara caught his gaze, searching for the warmth she'd once trusted, but found only a flicker of something unreadable, guilt, perhaps, or distraction. She dismissed it, blaming the pain that sharpened her senses, but the seed of doubt took root, burrowing deep. Contractions surged, each one a cresting wave that left Clara breathless, her body a battleground. Hours bled together, marked only by Vera's periodic checks and the relentless rhythm of pain. Lily's hand never left hers, her touch a silent vow. "I'm here." Clara clung to it, her daughter's strength anchoring her as the world narrowed to the next breath, the next push. Outside, the fog thickened, swallowing the dawn's faint light, and the hospital's walls seemed to hum with a quiet tension, as if echoing the mansion's restless whispers. A knock at the door broke the rhythm. Tom, Clara's brother, and his wife, Elise, stepped inside, their arrival a jarring intrusion. Tom, wiry and perpetually disheveled, wore a tie-dye shirt that clashed with the room's sterility, his grin forced as he hugged Clara gently. "Made it," he said, his voice too bright, his hazel eyes, Clara's eyes, darting nervously. Elise, pale and reserved, clutched a potted fern as if it were a talisman, her fingers trembling slightly. Her dark hair was pulled back tightly, accentuating the sharp angles of her face, and her gray eyes avoided Clara's, lingering instead on Marcus. The fern, with its delicate fronds, seemed an odd offering, its presence heavy with unspoken intent. Clara managed to smile, her pain momentarily eclipsed by the sight of family, but Elise's furtive glance at Marcus stirred the doubt in her chest, a ripple in still water. The hours stretched, each contraction a crucible forging Clara's resolve. Dr. Patel, the obstetrician, entered with a calm authority, her dark eyes assessing as she checked Clara's progress. "Almost there," she said, her voice a steady anchor. "Push with the next one." Clara summoned her strength, her body trembling as she bore down, the pain a white-hot blade carving her open. Lily's hand tightened, her whispered encouragement a lifeline. "You've got this, Mom." Marcus stood behind, his hands on Clara's shoulders, but his touch felt heavy, his silence louder than words. With a final, primal roar, Clara pushed, and the room filled with a new sound, a piercing cry, raw and alive. Stella was born, a tiny beacon of life, her cries cutting through the fog of pain. Dr. Patel lifted her, her small body slick and perfect, and placed her in Clara's arms. Clara's tears fell freely as she whispered, "Stella," the name a star plucked from Lily's nursery sky. The baby's eyes, still adjusting to the world, met hers, and Clara felt a love so fierce it eclipsed the pain, the doubt, the shadows. Lily leaned in, her finger brushing Stella's tiny hand, her voice soft with awe. "Hey, little star." Her green eyes shimmered with tears, her smile a mirror of Clara's joy. Marcus kissed Clara's forehead, his lips lingering, but his eyes remained distant, as if tethered to a secret beyond the room's walls. Clara, lost in Stella's warmth, barely noticed, her world narrowed to the weight of her daughter's life in her arms. Family filtered in, their presence a fleeting reprieve. Tom's camera flashed, capturing moments that felt both precious and fragile, his chatter about Seattle's rain a nervous hum. Elise placed the fern by the window, its fronds catching the dim light, and Clara caught her glancing at Marcus again, a silent exchange that passed too quickly to decipher. Exhaustion dulled Clara's instincts, her body sagging under the weight of childbirth, but the ripple of unease grew, lapping at the edges of her joy. The room, with its monitors and muted colors, felt like a stage, each player hiding their true role. That night, Lily insisted on staying, curling up on a cot beside Clara's bed. Stella slept in a bassinet, her breaths a soft rhythm in the dark. The hospital was quiet, save for the occasional footsteps of nurses and the distant wail of another newborn. Clara, propped against pillows, watched her daughters, her heart full yet heavy. Lily's voice broke the silence, a whisper laced with fear. "Mom, something's wrong with Marcus." Clara's breath caught, her mind racing to dismiss the words, to cling to the man she'd trusted. "He's just tired," she soothed, her voice gentle but unconvincing. Lily's silence was a weight, her green eyes searching the dark for answers Clara couldn't give. Outside, the fog pressed closer, swallowing the hospital in a gray embrace. The maternity ward's fluorescent lights buzzed faintly, casting stark shadows that seemed to shift with intent. Clara's eyes drifted to the fern, its fronds unnaturally still, as if holding a secret of their own. The room's antiseptic scent mingled with something else, earthy, metallic, like the air before a storm. Sleep eluded her, her dreams fractured by whispers she couldn't place, echoes of the mansion's restless hum. Stella stirred, her tiny hand flexing, and Clara reached for her, anchoring herself in the reality of her daughter's warmth. But the doubt, now a seed fully sprouted, coiled in her chest, its roots entwining with the joy of Stella's birth, promising a truth she wasn't ready to face. The hospital stood sentinel in the fog, its walls a fragile barrier against the shadows creeping closer. In the attic of 17, Willow Lane, a journal waited, its cryptic pages untouched, the vial beside it glowing faintly, as if counting down to revelation. Salem slept, its history of betrayal stirring, and Clara, caught in the liminal space between motherhood and suspicion, felt the first tremors of a storm that would shatter her world. The fog that smothered Salem Hospital at dawn lingered into morning, its gray tendrils pressing against the maternity ward's windows, as if reluctant to release the secrets it held. Inside, Clara Donovan lay in her hospital bed, her newborn daughter, Stella, cradled against her chest. The room's antiseptic scent mingled with the faint warmth of milk, and the soft beeps of monitors punctuated the quiet. Clara's hazel eyes, heavy with the exhaustion of childbirth, traced Stella's tiny features, her button nose, her delicate lashes, each detail a marvel that anchored her to this fragile moment of joy. Yet beneath the tenderness, a current of unease pulsed, fed by Lily's whispered warning from the night before. "Something's wrong with Marcus." The words, though dismissed in the dark, gnawed at her, their edges sharpened by the sterile light of day. Lily, 16 and fierce, sat cross-legged on a chair, her dark curls spilling over a hoodie still flecked with nursery paint. Her green eyes, mirrors of Clara's, watched Stella with awe, but her fingers fidgeted with the hem of her sleeve, betraying a restlessness that matched her mother's. The cot where she'd slept was neatly folded, a testament to her need for order amid chaos. Outside, the fog muffled the world, rendering the hospital an island adrift, its corridors humming with the muted footsteps of nurses and the distant wail of another newborn. Clara's body ached, each movement a reminder of the labor that had brought Stella into being, but her mind was alert, sifting through fragments of doubt that refused to settle. Marcus returned at mid-morning, his chef's coat swapped for a crisp sweater, a tray of coffee in hand. His brown eyes softened as he kissed Clara's cheek, but the gesture felt hollow, like a note played out of tune. "Had to check on the restaurant," he said, his voice smooth but clipped, an apology that didn't invite questions. He set a coffee on the bedside table, its steam curling like the fog outside, and Clara noticed his hand linger near his pocket, as if guarding something within. She nodded, her smile forced, her gaze catching the faint tension in his jaw. Stella stirred, her tiny hand flexing, and Marcus's face brightened briefly, but his eyes darted to the window, as if drawn by an unseen pull. Clara's chest tightened, the seed of doubt sprouting roots that coiled around her heart. Tom and Elise visited soon after, their arrival a discordant note in the room's fragile calm. Tom's tie-dye shirt clashed with the sterile walls, his grin too wide, his hazel eyes flickering with unease as he leaned to kiss Clara's forehead. "She's a star," he said, nodding at Stella, but his voice carried a forced cheer that grated. Elise, pale and angular, stood by the fern she'd brought, her gray eyes avoiding Clara's, her fingers tracing the pot's rim with unnatural focus. The fern, its fronds unnaturally still, seemed to loom larger, a silent sentinel in the corner. Clara caught Elise slipping a folded note to Marcus, her movement swift, almost imperceptible, but the glance they shared, a flicker of complicity, pierced Clara's haze of exhaustion. Marcus pocketed the note, his expression neutral, but the air in the room thickened, charged with unspoken truths. Alone after the visitors left, Clara's unease crystallized. Nurse Vera had left a tray on the bedside table, and atop it sat Marcus's chef's knife set, an odd relic from his hospital bag, its leather case scuffed but gleaming under the fluorescent light. Why bring knives to a hospital? The question gnawed at her, insistent. Stella slept in her bassinet, her breaths a soft rhythm, and Clara, driven by a compulsion she couldn't name, opened the case. The blades gleamed, their edges catching the light, but beneath them, tucked in a hidden compartment, was a folded paper. Her hands trembled as she unfolded it, her breath catching at the sight of Marcus's meticulous handwriting, a coded recipe not for food, but for a crypto heist. Names stood out: Marcus, Elise, and a third, Raven. The sums were staggering, targeting Clara's inheritance, the tech fortune left by her late father. Her pulse roared in her ears, the room tilting as the truth took shape. She rifled through Marcus's jacket, hung carelessly over a chair, and found a burner phone, its screen lighting up with texts. "Post-birth, we move. Potion keeps her quiet." Another mentioned a slow toxin to mimic postpartum complications, ensuring Clara's silence. The words seared her, each one a betrayal that shattered the life she'd built. Marcus, her anchor, was a traitor, Elise, complicit, and Raven, an unknown shadow pulling strings. Her inheritance, carefully managed since her first husband's death, was their prize, and Stella's birth was their trigger. Clara's hand shook, the paper crumpling in her grip, as fear and fury waged war within her. Stella's soft coo grounded her, a reminder of what was at stake: her children, her family, her life. Clara texted Lily, who was at the hospital cafeteria grabbing a snack, "Come back. Urgent." Minutes later, Lily burst in, her green eyes wide with alarm. Clara thrust the paper at her, her voice low but urgent. "Look." Lily's face paled as she read, her breath hitching at Marcus's handwriting, the damning evidence of Elise's role. "I saw her with his phone last night," Lily whispered, her voice trembling with betrayal. "I thought it was nothing." The weight of their discovery pressed down, the room's walls closing in, the fern's shadow looming like a specter. Clara's mind raced, piecing together the glances, the note, the unease that had haunted her since Stella's birth. They were pawns in a game they hadn't known they were playing. Voices approached Marcus and Elise, their steps echoing in the corridor. "Lily's probably at school by now," Marcus said, his tone casual but edged with intent. "Clara's out of it. We move as planned." Elise's murmur agreed, her words indistinct but heavy with purpose. Clara's heart pounded, her body still weak from labor but fueled by survival. Lily acted first, stuffing the paper and burner phone into her backpack, her movement swift and silent. "Mom, dress," she hissed, tossing Clara the clothes she'd brought days ago. Clara fumbled out of her hospital gown, her limbs heavy but driven by adrenaline. She bundled Stella in a blanket, the baby's warmth a talisman against the fear clawing at her. Lily zipped her backpack, her eyes fierce. "We're getting out." Marcus knocked, his voice deceptively soft. "Clara, you awake?" Clara's pulse spiked, but she steadied her voice, feigning exhaustion. "Resting. Need a bit." The lie bought them moments, Marcus's footsteps retreating with a muttered, "I'll grab coffee." Elise's presence lingered, her shadow visible through the door's frosted glass, but she followed him, their voices fading. Clara and Lily exchanged a glance, a silent pact forged in fear and resolve. The room, once a haven of new life, was now a trap, its sterile walls complicit in the betrayal unfolding. They moved to the door, Clara clutching Stella, Lily leading with her backpack slung over one shoulder. The corridor was a gauntlet, nurses busy with charts, patients' families milling about. Clara's legs trembled, her body protesting each step, but Lily's hand on her arm was a steady guide. They avoided the main elevators, opting for the service exit at the ward's far end, its stairwell a dim, echoing descent. The hospital's hum, beeps, footsteps, distant cries, faded as they descended, the air growing cooler, heavier, as if the fog had seeped inside. Stella stirred, her soft whimper threatening to betray them, but Clara soothed her with a gentle sway, her heart aching with love and terror. At the ground floor, Lily peered through the exit's window, the fog beyond a gray veil. Jasper, Lily's friend, waited in his beat-up van, its engine idling, a lifeline in the haze. "Ipswich cabin," Lily directed, her voice steel as she opened the door. Clara slid into the back seat, Stella cradled close, while Lily took the front, her backpack clutched like a shield. The van lurched forward, Salem's witchy fog clinging to them, the hospital receding into a ghostly silhouette. Clara glanced back, her eyes tracing the building where she'd dreamed of a new beginning, now a monument to betrayal. The van's tires hummed on the wet pavement, carrying them into the unknown. Clara's mind churned, the coated paper and burner phone burning in her thoughts. Marcus and Elise were steps ahead, their plan in motion, and Raven loomed as an unseen threat. Lily's hand reached back, squeezing Clara's, her green eyes fierce in the rearview mirror. "We're enough, Mom." Clara nodded, her throat tight, Stella's warmth grounding her. The fog swallowed Salem, but the truth, sharp and unyielding, cut through, promising a reckoning that would test their bonds and redefine their family. The Ipswich cabin, a weathered sanctuary of cedar and stone, crouched beside a marsh where reeds swayed under the weight of lingering fog. Its isolation, miles from Salem's haunted streets, offered Clara Donovan and her daughters a fragile shield against the betrayal that had upended their lives. Inside, the air was heavy with the scent of damp wood and salt, the cabin's sparse furnishings, a sagging couch, a scarred table, lit by the flicker of a single lamp. Clara sat at the table, her newborn, Stella, asleep in a makeshift crib fashioned from blankets and a crate. The coded recipe and burner phone, pilfered from Marcus's knife set, lay spread before her, their damning words illuminated by the lamp's glow. Clara's hazel eyes, shadowed by exhaustion and fury, traced the documents, each line a wound that deepened her resolve. At 35, she was no stranger to loss, but this betrayal, by Marcus, her husband, and Elise, her brother's wife, cut deeper, threatening not just her wealth but her children's future. Lily, 16 and resolute, stood by the cabin's sole window, her dark curls framing a face taut with vigilance. Her green eyes scanned the marsh, alert for any sign of pursuit, her paint-splattered hoodie a reminder of the nursery she'd left behind. The backpack containing the evidence rested at her feet, a lifeline to their survival. Stella's soft breaths were the only sound, a delicate counterpoint to the marsh's restless whispers, crickets, wind, the occasional splash of unseen creatures. Clara's fingers trembled as she reread the recipe, its crypto heist meticulously planned. Marcus and Elise, with Tom's complicity, aimed to siphon her inheritance, a tech fortune from her late father, through Elise's botanical exports as a front. A chilling note detailed a toxin, disguised as a postpartum remedy, to render Clara docile, her instability a pretext for seizing her assets. The burner phone's texts, cold and clinical, confirmed the timeline. Post-birth, we move. Clara's stomach churned, the betrayal a poison in her veins, but Stella's presence grounded her, a beacon of purpose. Lily turned from the window, her voice low but fierce. They'll know we're gone by now. Clara nodded, her throat tight, the weight of their escape pressing down. The hospital, a place of Stella's birth, was now a trap they'd narrowly fled, Marcus and Elise's voices echoing in her memory as they plotted in the corridor. Clara's phone, silenced but buzzing with messages, lit up with Marcus's name. Where are you? I'm worried. Elise's followed. Is Stella okay? The feigned concern sickened her, each word a mask for their intent. Tom's silence was its own accusation, his role in the scheme facilitating crypto transfers etched in the documents. Clara's brother, once her ally, was now a stranger, his betrayal a shard in her heart. The cabin's isolation, though protective, felt suffocating, the marsh's fog a mirror of Clara's clouded thoughts. Lily, ever practical, broke the silence, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. We need help, Mom. Ms. Harlow, my art teacher, knows someone. Clara seized the suggestion, her mind grasping for a lifeline. Lily texted Harlow, explaining their plight in coded terms, and within an hour, a reply connected them to Nora Blake, a private investigator with a reputation for unraveling fraud. Nora's arrival was swift, her compact frame and sharp gray eyes exuding authority as she stepped into the cabin, her boots leaving muddy prints on the floor. She carried a leather satchel, its contents clinking softly, and her presence was a jolt of clarity in the haze of fear. Nora spread the documents across the table, her eyes scanning the coded recipe and burner phone texts with a predator's focus. Fraud, conspiracy, attempted murder, she declared, her voice clipped, each word a verdict. Marcus's restaurant is a front, laundering money for years. Elise's botanical exports masked the crypto transfers. Tom's skills tie it together. She tapped the note about the toxin, her expression grim. This is enough for arrests, but we need to move fast. Clara's breath caught, the scope of the betrayal overwhelming, but Nora's confidence was a tether. She outlined a plan, a safe house in Gloucester, a sting to lure Marcus and Elise, and a prosecutor contact to expedite charges. Tom's involved, Nora warned, her gaze softening. You ready to face that? Clara's heart twisted, but she nodded, her voice barely audible. For my kids. Nora arranged the sting with surgical precision, leaking the cabin's location to a trusted cop while Clara, Lily, and Stella relocated to the safe house, a nondescript cottage by the sea, its windows rattling in the coastal wind. The sting unfolded that night, the cabin's solitude shattered by police floodlights as Marcus and Elise arrived, their van carrying vials of green liquid, the toxin meant for Clara. Their arrests were swift, their confessions spilling under interrogation, each word a nail in their coffin. Marcus's voice, once a comfort, was hollow as he admitted the affair with Elise, the plan to seize Clara's wealth, and Raven, a hacker alias for a silent partner still at large. Elise's silence was damning, her botanical expertise twisted into a tool of deceit. Tom, confronted separately, claimed coercion, his role limited to crypto logistics, but the documents belied his excuses, his signatures stark on the page. The courtroom in Boston, a month later, was a crucible of truth. Judge Hawthorne, a woman with iron-gray hair and a gaze that cut through lies, presided with unflinching authority. The chamber, with its oak paneling and high windows, was packed with reporters, their murmurs a low hum as Clara took the stand. Her voice, though trembling, was steady, recounting the hospital escape, the coded recipe, the burner phone's texts. She wore a simple dress, her hair pulled back, Stella's absence, safe with a trusted friend, a weight on her heart. Lily followed, her testimony clear and unshakable, her green eyes fierce as she described finding the knife-set evidence, her voice cracking only when she spoke of Marcus's betrayal. He was my dad. The words hung heavy, a wound laid bare. Nora presented the evidence with precision, the recipe, phone records, bank transfers, and toxin analysis from the vials, their green liquid a chemical match for a slow-acting poison. Marcus, seated with his lawyer, looked diminished, his brown eyes hollow as he met Clara's gaze, his pleas of love and misunderstanding falling flat. Elise, beside him, stared at the floor, her silence a confession. Tom, in a separate hearing, fidgeted, his tie-dye replaced by an ill-fitting suit, his excuses pressure from Marcus, financial desperation lacking conviction. The courtroom's air was thick, the weight of betrayal palpable, as Judge Hawthorne reviewed the documents, her expression severe. Clara's testimony was bolstered by medical reports confirming her mental stability, countering Marcus's attempts to paint her as unstable. Bank records traced payments to Elise's accounts, and Tom's crypto logs linked him to the scheme, though his role was peripheral. The judge's gavel fell like a thunderclap, issuing emergency protective orders for Clara, Lily, and Stella, freezing Marcus and Elise's assets, and ordering criminal trials for fraud, conspiracy, and attempted harm. Tom faced lesser charges, his cooperation sparing him prison but not shame. The courtroom emptied, reporters scrambling for quotes. But Clara felt no triumph, only a hollow relief, her family fractured beyond repair. Outside, the Boston sky was clear, a stark contrast to Salem's fog, but Clara's heart remained clouded. Marcus's final glance, a mix of anger and defeat, lingered in her mind, as did Elise's averted eyes and Tom's mumbled apologies. Lily took her hand, her touch a lifeline, her voice soft but firm. "We're free, Mom." Clara squeezed back, Stella's absence a physical ache, but the promise of their reunion fueled her. The courthouse steps, cold underfoot, marked the end of one battle and the beginning of another, a life rebuilt from the ashes of betrayal. The cabin, now empty, stood silent, its marsh whispering of secrets exposed. In Salem, 17, Willow Lane loomed, its attic journal untouched, the vial's glow dimmed but not extinguished, as if ravens still watched from the shadows. Clara, Lily, and Stella were safe, but the specter of betrayal lingered, a reminder that trust, once broken, left scars that time could only soften, not erase. The sea beyond the safe house roared, its waves a promise of resilience, and Clara, holding Lily's hand, stepped into an uncertain future, her daughters her only certainty. A year after the storm of betrayal that had torn through Clara Donovan's life, a modest cottage in Gloucester, Massachusetts, stood bathed in the golden light of a spring morning. Perched on a bluff overlooking the Atlantic, its white clapboard walls and sea-weathered shutters exuded a quiet resilience, much like the family within. The air was crisp, scented with salt and blooming lilacs, the ocean's ceaseless roar a backdrop to the new life Clara, Lily, and Stella had forged. Inside, the cottage was a haven of warmth, its rooms filled with thrift store furniture, Lily's vibrant star capes on the walls, and the soft clutter of a toddler's toys. Clara, now 36, stood in the kitchen, her chestnut hair tied back as she kneaded dough for bread, her hazel eyes reflecting a hard-won peace. The scars of betrayal lingered, but they had softened, woven into the fabric of her strength. Lily, 17 and radiant, bounded down the stairs, her dark curls bouncing, her green eyes alight with purpose. She wore a paint-splattered smock, her hands dusted with charcoal from a morning spent sketching. Accepted into a prestigious art school in Boston, she was poised to graduate high school, her dreams of becoming a painter no longer tethered to the attic nursery of 17, Willow Lane. Stella, a toddling sunbeam at 1 year old, giggled in her high chair, her chubby hands smearing oatmeal across her tray. Her eyes, a blend of Clara's hazel and something uniquely her own, sparkled with curiosity, her laughter filling the cottage like sunlight. The trio's bond, forged in the crucible of survival, was unbreakable, a true family defined not by blood but by love and trust. The cottage's heart was the gallery Clara had opened in town, a small space where Lily's art, cosmic swirls and starry vistas, hung alongside works by local artists. Named Stella's Sky, it was a testament to their rebirth, each canvas a defiance of the darkness they'd escaped. Clara's inheritance, restored after the court's ruling, funded the gallery and a charity for families betrayed by those closest to them. Her days were filled with curating exhibits, mentoring young artists, and advocating for others, her own pain alchemized into purpose. The gallery's opening had drawn a crowd, its walls echoing with praise for Lily's talent, and Clara's heart swelled with pride, her daughter's resilience a mirror of her own. Outside, the garden Clara had planted bloomed with wildflowers, lupins, daisies, and sea roses, their colors a stark contrast to the wilted roses of Willow Lane. She tended them daily, Stella toddling at her side, her tiny fingers grasping petals with wonder. The ocean beyond was a constant, its tides washing away the echoes of Marcus's betrayal, Elise's complicity, and Tom's shame. Marcus, sentenced to 7 years for fraud and attempted harm, was a fading shadow, his restaurant shuttered, his reputation dust. Elise, serving a shorter term, had vanished into obscurity, her botanical expertise a footnote in her downfall. Tom, on probation, had sent letters of remorse, but Clara, unready to forgive, left them unopened, their weight a reminder of boundaries she'd learned to set. Lily, preparing for school, slung her backpack over her shoulder, pausing to kiss Stella's forehead. "Got her bag ready, Mom?" she asked, her voice bright but tinged with the maturity forged by their ordeal. Clara nodded, gesturing to a diaper bag by the door. "I'll pick her up today. Study hard." Lily grinned, her departure a whirlwind of energy, leaving Clara and Stella in the quiet kitchen. Clara lifted Stella, her warmth a balm, and stepped onto the porch, the sea's roar filling her senses. The horizon stretched wide, a canvas of possibility, and Clara felt a surge of gratitude for the life they'd built, fragile but fierce. The past year had been a gauntlet. After the courtroom victory, Clara had sold 17, Willow Lane, its attic journal and vial destroyed, their secrets buried with the house's sale. The move to Gloucester was a deliberate act of severance, each mile a step away from Salem's ghosts. Clara's charity work connected her to others who'd faced betrayal, their stories echoing hers, and she found solace in shared resilience. Lily thrived, her art a conduit for healing, each painting a star in the sky she'd promised Stella. Stella, oblivious to the storm that had birthed her, was a beacon of joy, her toddling steps a promise of new beginnings. A phone call interrupted Clara's reverie. Nora Blake, the private investigator who'd been their lifeline, spoke with her usual brisk warmth. "Good news, Clara. The last of Marcus's assets are released. You and the kids are secure." Clara exhaled, relief mingling with gratitude. "Thank you, Nora. We owe you everything." Nora's reply was firm. "You saved yourselves." She mentioned Tom's latest attempt to reach out, his remorse seemingly genuine, but Clara's response was measured. "I need time." Nora understood, her silence a nod to Clara's boundaries. Clara carried Stella to the garden, settling on a bench as the toddler crawled through the grass, chasing a butterfly. The sea's rhythm soothed her, its waves a metaphor for the tides of her life. Loss, betrayal, rebirth. Her first husband's death had been a wound, Marcus's betrayal a deeper cut, but each had taught her the true meaning of family. Blood was chance, trust was choice. Lily and Stella were her center, their love a fortress against the world's shadows. The journal she now kept, its pages filled with her own words, "Family is trust, forged in fire," was a testament to that truth, its ink a stark contrast to the cryptic runes of Willow Lane. In the afternoon, Clara took Stella to a nearby park, where other mothers, met through community events, greeted her warmly. They swapped stories of sleepless nights and toddler antics, their laughter a bridge to normalcy. Clara, once guarded, found herself opening, her place in Gloucester's tight-knit community a quiet triumph. Stella played in the sandbox, her giggles drawing smiles, and Clara watched, her heart full. The park, with its swings and salt-tinged breeze, was a far cry from Salem's fog, its openness a balm to her soul. Picking up Lily from school, Clara smiled as her daughter bounded into the car, her face alight with news. "Aced my portfolio review." Clara's pride was fierce, her voice warm. "You're unstoppable." At home, they prepared dinner, Lily entertaining Stella with silly faces while Clara chopped vegetables, their laughter echoing through the cottage. The dark days of Ipswich, the hospital, the courtroom felt distant, like a storm that had passed, leaving only the strength it had forged. That night, after tucking Stella into her crib, Clara and Lily sat on the living room couch, a quilt draped over them. The room, with its driftwood shelves and Lily's art, was a cocoon of their making. Lily's voice, soft but certain, broke the quiet. "We're enough, right, Mom?" Clara met her daughter's green eyes, her smile genuine, unshadowed by doubt. "Always." The words were a vow, their bond a light that no betrayal could dim. Outside, the starry sky stretched wide, its constellations a map of their resilience, each star a promise Lily had painted for Stella. The cottage glowed under Gloucester's night, its warmth the defiance of the shadows that had once threatened to consume them. The sea whispered of endurance, its tides erasing old wounds. Somewhere, in Salem's depths, 17, Willow Lane stood empty, its secrets buried, the vial's gleam extinguished. Clara, Lily, and Stella, a small but unyielding family, faced the future, their path lit by trust and love, the stars above their guide. The world beyond could hold its dangers, but within these walls, they were whole, their rebirth complete. Under Gloucester's starry veil, the modest cottage on the bluff stood as a beacon of hard-won peace, its white clapboard walls glowing faintly in the moon's embrace. The Atlantic's ceaseless roar wove through the night, a lullaby of resilience that cradled the family within. Clara Donovan, now 36, stood on the porch, her chestnut hair loose, catching the sea breeze. Her hazel eyes, once shadowed by betrayal, shimmered with quiet strength, reflecting the constellations above. The air was cool, scented with salt and the faint sweetness of lilacs, their blooms lingering into early summer. Inside, the cottage hummed with life, Lily's laughter, Stella's soft snores, a symphony of love that drowned out the echoes of Salem's ghosts. Clara leaned against the porch railing, her hands tracing the weathered wood, its grooves a map of the year since their escape. The cottage, with its mismatched furniture and walls adorned with Lily's starlit art, was more than a home. It was a sanctuary forged from the ashes of 17, Willow Lane. The memory of that Victorian mansion, with its ivy-clad secrets and attic journal, felt like a distant nightmare, its hold on her severed when she'd sold it. The vial and its cryptic pages burned to dust. Gloucester's open skies and rolling waves had replaced Salem's fog, each sunrise a promise of renewal. Clara's fingers brushed the journal she now kept, tucked in her pocket, its pages filled with her own words. Family is trust, forged in fire. It was a testament to the truth she'd learned, its ink a stark contrast to the crimson warnings of the past. Lily, 17 and vibrant, was inside, sketching at the kitchen table, her dark curls spilling over a notebook as she mapped a new constellation for Stella's bedroom. Her green eyes, mirrors of Clara's, sparkled with the fire of an artist on the cusp of greatness, her acceptance to Boston's art school a milestone earned through talent and grit. Stella, 1-year-old, slept in her crib, her tiny chest rising and falling, her dreams untainted by the storm that had birthed her. Her presence, a toddling sunbeam, was the heart of their home, her giggles a daily reminder of why Clara had fought, why she'd fled the hospital, faced the courtroom, and rebuilt from nothing. The trio's bond, tempered in betrayal's crucible, was unbreakable, a family not of blood but of choice, each moment together a defiance of the shadows that had nearly consumed them. The gallery, Stella's sky, thrived in Gloucester's heart, its walls a canvas for Lily's cosmic visions and the works of others who'd found solace in art. Clara's charity, funded by her restored inheritance, reached across the state, offering support to families shattered by betrayal, their stories echoing her own. She'd become a quiet pillar in the community, her days filled with mentoring artists, counseling survivors, and tending the garden where Stella chased butterflies. The wildflowers, lupins, daisies, sea roses, bloomed fiercely, their roots deep in soil Clara had reclaimed, a mirror of her own resilience. The ocean, ever present, washed away the last traces of Marcus's lies, Elisa's silence, and Tom's remorse, their names rarely spoken, their impact reduced to lessons carved in Clara's soul. Marcus, imprisoned for fraud and attempted harm, was a fading specter, his restaurant a boarded-up relic, his charm exposed as a mask. Elise, serving her sentence, had slipped into obscurity, her botanical knowledge a twisted footnote. Tom, on probation, sent letters Clara left unopened, his apologies a bridge she wasn't ready to cross. The courtroom's gavel, Judge Hawthorne's stern verdict, and Nora Blake's sharp-eyed intervention were milestones of justice, but Clara's true victory was this life, her daughter's, her purpose, her peace. The inheritance, once a target, now fueled her work, its wealth a tool for healing rather than a curse. A shooting star streaked across the sky, its arc a silent vow, and Clara smiled, her heart full. She stepped inside, the cottage's warmth enveloping her, Lily's pencil scratching softly as she sketched. "Look, Mom," Lily said, holding up a nebula, its swirls vibrant against the page. For Stella. Clara's pride was fierce, her voice soft. "She'll love it." The room, with its driftwood shelves and quilt-draped couch, was a cocoon of their making, each corner a testament to their strength. Stella's crib stood by the window, her tiny hand curled around a stuffed star, her dreams a canvas of innocence. Clara sat beside Lily, the journal in her lap, its pages a chronicle of their journey, from Willow Lane's shadows to Gloucester's light. She wrote tonight, her pen steady, "The stars endure, and so do we." The words were a prayer, a promise, a truth etched in the wake of betrayal. Lily leaned against her, their shoulders touching, and Clara felt the weight of their bond, a fortress against the world's uncertainties. The sea's whisper drifted through the open window, its rhythm a heartbeat syncing with their own, and the stars above burned bright, mapping a path they'd carved together. Somewhere, in Salem's depths, 17, Willow Lane stood empty, its attic silent, the vial's gleam extinguished, its curse broken. The town's history of witches and secrets lingered, but it held no power here. Clara, Lily and Stella were beyond its reach, their cottage a lighthouse in the dark, its glow a defiance of the past. The future stretched before them, uncharted but theirs to shape, each day a step on a path lit by trust. Clara closed the journal, her fingers lingering on its cover, and looked at Lily, then at Stella's crib. They were enough, more than enough, a family forged in fire, their love a constellation that would never fade. The night deepened, Gloucester's sky a tapestry of stars, each one a story, a hope, a victory. The cottage stood firm, its walls a shield, its heart aflame. Clara's gaze lingered on the horizon, where sea met sky, and she felt a quiet certainty. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it together, their scars a map of survival, their love a light that no shadow could extinguish. The stars watched, eternal and unyielding, and Clara, holding her daughters close in her heart, stepped into tomorrow, her rebirth complete.